Hi there, welcome back to another episode of Confessions of a Amateur Photographer. I am your amateur photographer, Regan. I live in southwestern Ontario, Canada, and I enjoy photography. And this is a place where we talk photography, and yeah, that's basically about it. Today we are going to just jump right in. We are going to talk about Superzoom cameras versus DSLR cameras. Now, you have a lot of choice when you think about cameras, because there's compact, which I don't think are so popular anymore. They used to be really popular. You know, they were square, you take them on trips, you stick them in your pocket. Now we have our cell phones. So those they're still around, but they're not quite as popular. And it won't be a topic of conversation from here on out. But there are two other types of cameras that are still quite popular. So there's the DSLR camera and there's the Superzoom camera. So if you're just getting into photography, you're probably thinking about which one should I get, because there's a lot of choice. And even within these two categories, there's a ton of choice. And the thing about photography that I've learned as I was looking for a new camera is that you can spend as much or as little as you want within these subcategories, right? So I'm just going to talk about the benefits of both because I've used both. So let's get started. So I'm going to start with the Superzoom camera first. This is what I've started on. This is a Sony DH300. I got it in 2014, so it is quite dated compared to a lot of the new Superzoom cameras, but I absolutely loved it. So the pros as far as Superzoom cameras go, it's compact. So this is literally, I could just pick it up and go. I didn't have to worry about, did I have the right lens or, you know, bulky camera bags or whatever else. I could literally pick it up and go. So that's one really great thing about it. The second thing that I love about this camera is the optical zoom lens. So this is a 35 times optical zoom lens. And the thing about the Superzoom camera is you don't have to constantly put on and take off lenses, right? It comes with the extendable zoom lens. And today, in a lot of the new Superzoom cameras, I think the optical lens is even better. I think it's probably, there's some that are 50. I think the Nikon P300, the Nikon P900, I believe, is much longer in length, which makes getting those really far away shots possible, right? And you don't have to change your lens. So that's another great aspect of the Superzoom camera. Also, price, right? If you're getting into photography for the first time, you don't really know what to expect and you don't want to spend a ton of money, Superzoom is honestly the way to go. You can spend as little as $200 and as much as, I think top of the line is $1,000. So it's one of those things, right? Honestly, I love my Superzoom. It pained me to give it up. But yeah, so a few of the downsides with Superzoom: battery life. I don't know, this probably isn't as much a big deal now with the newer cameras because they would have a lithium battery. But if you are buying something that has, that takes 4 AA's like this, it can be inconvenient, especially because this, it uses a lot of battery life. It goes through batteries very quickly. So there would be times where I would be out in the woods and my camera would just die. And I'd have to, if I wasn't carrying batteries with me, I wouldn't be able to take any pictures. So that is a downside. And then the frame. So I'll talk about this a little bit later. Well, maybe I'll talk about it now. So with the DSLR, you get a full frame image. So this is an example of a full frame image. This is in Hyde Park, which is very close to me. It's a natural conservation area. It's very pretty, but this is a full frame image. Whereas with a Superzoom camera, you're getting a smaller framed image. It's like, if this is a rectangle, it's like I would say like a quarter of the rectangle, maybe a third. If you're watching this and you know about full frame versus not full frame, comment below. But there is a difference. And I will post a link below that I wrote about the differences between a DSLR and a Superzoom. And in that, there is an example between the difference of a full frame and a not full frame. Okay, so that is the Superzoom camera. Moving on to the DSLR. So the DSLR is probably the most common camera, right? For photography, for hobbyists, for professionals. There is something called a mirrorless camera as well, and that is starting to gain some traction, but largely it's still DSLR that is probably the most popular. So I got a DSLR recently, within the past year. I had to do a lot of research, which is why I'm sharing this video with you, because I had so many questions myself about the difference between the two. Because I love my Superzoom so much that, and I didn't know what to expect with the DSLR, that I thought it might just be easier to keep the Superzoom, or, you know, get a new Superzoom, right? But I'm glad I went with my DSLR. So this is the DSLR camera. So, or pros. Let's start with the good stuff. So shutter speed. So the biggest difference that I noticed when I got the DSLR was the time between when I put my finger on the button to take a picture and when it clicked and appeared on the screen. With the Superzoom camera, it took about 30 to 45 seconds, whereas with this, it's 3 seconds. One of the very first pictures I took was of a butterfly. And I got this great detailed shot of a monarch butterfly. And I was so excited because with the Superzoom camera, that would not have been possible. It would have flown off and it would have been a blurred mess. So shutter speed, definitely the biggest upside. So it gives you cleaner images as well. So as you can tell, this is a very clear image. Again, it's that full frame. Lots of detail, right? If you're doing like up close shots. Again, you can find these examples in the link below, and you can see the difference between a Superzoom and a DSLR and the type of image that you get. So another big reason why I got the DSLR was because of the manual settings. Photography, you know, it's more than just pressing a button, right? So I really wanted to get off of auto and figure out the whole manual thing, because manual, it gives you the ability to control your aperture and your white balance and all of these fancy terms that I still don't know what they mean. We will learn together. But the nuts and bolts of what I'm saying is that the manual settings gives you better control over your photography, right? So you're able to create the art that you want. So that is a big reason for why I got the DSLR. And then battery life. Battery life is amazing on this thing. I can go a month without charging the battery. Month or two, depending on how often I use my camera. Obviously, it will depend, right? Depending on the amount of use that you get or give your camera, but another huge bonus, battery life. I'm not having to carry around AA batteries in my purse anymore, so that's a plus. And then cons. So the DSLR definitely, it costs more. Now I did buy my camera used, and I will be doing a video on used versus new. But for the most part, if you are looking at buying a new DSLR camera, they start at about 450, 500 Canadian dollars, and they can go upwards all the way to the like professional range cameras, which are about 10 grand. So there is a big difference between the cost of the two, right? When you can get a top of the line Superzoom camera for $1,000 or less, whereas top of the line DSLR camera is probably 2 grand and above. So just something to think about. Lenses. So this is a downside, which, I mean, it's one of those things. It's 6 of one, half dozen of another, because obviously the extendable lenses and you know, the exchangeable lenses and stuff, the DSLR camera in general gives you a clear full framed image. So that's what you're really getting when you go to a DSLR. But you also have to keep in mind that there are interchangeable lenses, right? So the lens comes off and you can put a new one on it. Obviously, this is going to cost you more money in the long run. And also, lenses aren't necessarily, they're not multi-purpose all the time, right? So if I want to get a really close-up shot of, let's say, a deer, I'm not going to be able to use this lens to get the really clear up close shot that I want. I'm going to need a lens that is much longer, right? Whereas with this, now this is 35 times optical zoom, but if I'm using a super zoom camera that has 50 or 80 times optical zoom, I'm going to be able to get that deer without having to buy a different lens, right? So it's one of those things where, I mean, I'm not going to say you take the good with the bad, but it is 6 of one, half dozen of another. And it's just something to keep in mind, especially, I mean, if you're just getting into photography and you don't want to be plunking down all of this money for different types of lenses, and different types of cameras, and you don't even know what they do, go with the super zoom. Save yourself the headaches and go with the super zoom. It's like training wheels. It's like a bike with training wheels. And honestly, I love my super zoom. I do. I love it. It pained me to have to give it up. But I'm thankful that I was able to practice on it for as long as I did. So another downside to the DSLR is the weight. It's definitely heavier than the super zoom. And as you get up into the professional grade cameras, they're obviously going to get heavier. And obviously it's not as compact as a super zoom because you have to think ahead of, well, if I don't want to take my full camera bag with all the lenses, what lens am I going to need for the exact thing that I'm going to need to do, right? So yeah, so those are some of the pros and cons of super zoom and DSLR cameras. In all, they're both really great. And I would say, honestly, I keep coming back to this one. I keep coming back to the super zoom. I just loved it so much. It was so nice to learn on. And it really gave me the confidence in my photography to be able to go up to the DSLR to get even better at my craft. So honestly, this is not a bad place to start if you are looking to just kind of get into it without plunking down a ton of money. But again, the DSLR, wonderful. And I'm looking forward to learning the manual settings with you all as we continue through this journey. But for now, I will post a link down below in the description box. And look at the article if you're curious, you know, you want to go into more detail about the pros and cons of super zooms and DSLRs, or if you just want to see the examples that I've listed between, you know, what is a full frame shot and what is the shot that you get with a super zoom camera, right? What is the difference in clarity between the two in terms of product or shot or whatever you want to call it. So definitely check those out. It's in the link below. And if you have any comments about content, or you want to comment on this video, comment below. I'd love to hear back from you. If you are finding us for the first time, make sure you give this video a like if you liked it, and subscribe if you like content like this, so that you know when new content loads. All right, guys, thank you so much for checking out Confessions of an Amateur Photographer. I will see you next time. Bye.